a person came up to me after and said, want to know my favorite part? My favorite part was watching your husband watch you as people were praising you. He had tears welling up in his eyes, which doesn't happen very often.
All right, always great to hear from Dr. Mike on the beach, a beautiful spot there in Florida. We have another Mike with us, Mike and Diane.
But we're not on the beach.
But we're from Florida.
Oh, there you go.
From
There you
Florida,
go.
that's
Yeah.
right. And Dan and Danielle.
Can we film a Better Us on the beach sometime?
Yeah, hey,
I know, right?
Yeah.
let's bring our kitchen island to the beach.
Something to celebrate.
For sure. Yeah. Really.
But celebrating the win, some good points there. Some interesting studies done with the different types of reactions that espouse to wins.
Who knew the way you celebrate your spouse really has such an impact on your marriage?
Or fail to?
Or fail.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
I remember Anne, she was a U.S. citizen, and I brought her to Canada. Free trade's a good thing. And many, many years ago. But then at one point she said, I should go through and get my Canadian citizenship. And so you have to write an exam. And
I studied so hard. I memorized that book. I knew things about Canada this guy didn't even know.
Yeah, no, I was looking at the questions and wait, I'd have to look that one up. I
Yeah,
don't know.
exactly.
But anyway, so she put the hard work into it, and we were hosting 100 Huntley Street at the time, a national TV program in Canada, and so I mentioned it on air, and then she got really nervous because you mentioned on national TV that I'm having
Live.
an exam,
It was
and what
live
if I
TV
don't
too.
pass?
There's no taking
we've
it
got to
back.
report back to how we did, and so she studied extra hard. And anyway,
Yeah, really, huh?
she aced it. She got 100% on this exam for citizenship.
Yeah.
And so that was something to celebrate. And so we did that on TV as
So
well.
yeah, so that was nice. But you know what? It doesn't have to be something big. It can be something little. Years ago, when we first got married, we would, if somebody would do something, one of us would do something, we'd say, "Oh, good job, honey. Good job, honey." And it got to a point where we just shortened it. And so now, all these years later, all we say is jaw bunny, like jaw bunny, jaw bunny, but we know what that means because it's a little insight. But it's just the little things, just to acknowledge if someone does something well.
Well, when you celebrate something, you are showing that that thing or that person matters. Like Mike, when there's an Argos win, you're celebrating big because you're invested in your team. And so we have to ask ourselves, are we invested in our team? And I feel like we do a pretty good job of it. We're winning at celebrating the wins, wouldn't you say?
I would say.
So I do have a couple, when I was thinking about, back to us celebrating, I can think back to, as Dan is a recording artist, when we found out that he was going to get to work with his all-time favorite recording artist. Well, he was still on a flight when we got the...
We're not saying who that is?
Sure, say
Michael W. Smith.
Yes, of course.
And so he was still on a flight, and I actually found out earlier than he did. I knew before he did. And here I am at about 11 o'clock at night in the living room, jumping on the couch by myself like a fool because I was so happy for him. And his win is our win
Right.
together. And so I think I was probably more excited than you were.
I was stunned, but
And you had more pressure for sure. And then there was a time that I did one of my first book launches. And Anne, you were there. We had a big party to celebrate. But as I look back on this moment, I don't think I ever told you this, so I'm going to tell him on national television. The night was so special to me, but a person came up to me after and said, want to know my favorite part? My favorite part was watching your husband watch you as people were praising you. He had tears welling up in his eyes, which doesn't happen very often. And he was just so proud. And when I look back at that night, that is the thing that is most special to me. Don't well up right now. That is the thing that is most special to me. So we need to be the loudest cheerleaders for our spouse. It matters.
I can relate to what you're saying about that, watching your husband watch you, because a couple weekends ago, we officiated our first wedding for some friends of ours, and it was a pretty big wedding. And I don't know about Michael, but I was super nervous because this is something I'd never done before. So I worked really hard. I wanted to say the right things. I wanted to just make it beautiful for them. But I was so nervous because I was officiating and I was doing the music at the same time. And at the end, a couple came up to me and said the same thing. They were like, what I loved most, they were like, beautiful job, but what I loved was watching him watch you and celebrate you. He was so proud of you. And I was like, that like just, it made me feel so good. I was like, yeah, I did that, right?
Right, because you can get praise from everyone else, but if you
Exactly.
don't get praise from your spouse,
Exactly.
it doesn't
Yeah.
matter as much.
Yeah.
Pretty soon, a better us is going to turn into a wetter us.
Let those tears flow, Mike.
Yo, being on the drama. Oprah, what?
As I think of this, though, I really believe that there is another level, right? If we don't celebrate our brides, right? If we don't celebrate our husbands, right? We are really missing the boat. I think it goes beyond that, right? I think
And
that should
someone
be
else
the-
will.
Someone will.
Right, that's right. And so as we move along together, right, those are the easy wins, right? That really is the easy wins, right? We also need to celebrate them when they are going through challenges, right? When they're going through the difficult times. And we also need to celebrate them for no reason at all, right? Just because. And so absolutely all the things that we want to stick to the script to make sure that yes, we do make time to celebrate each other, but that's the starting point, not the ending point.
And Mike, I love what you said because that's a lead into a story I'm about to tell. As you know, I went through breast cancer not too long ago. And when you go through chemotherapy, I had 8 rounds of chemotherapy, and it was a very, very challenging few months. At the very end, the way the hospital celebrates is they have this big gong, and on your very last chemo day, you take the gong and you hit it, and everyone around, the family comes, and everyone around cheers
We
for
got
you.
it on video,
Yeah.
and we were, I was there celebrating with you.
But unfortunately, now this was before COVID, our kids couldn't be there because they were just, schedules weren't lined up. So it was just the nurses and the doctors and other patients and my wonderful honey there that were celebrating with me. Well, a couple of months later, to get through this.
Here comes the wetter us.
I know it.
The
I
wetter
know
us.
it. Our kids, we were all together. Our daughter and her family were up from the States, and we were all together. We just had a lovely meal and here at the dining room table. And our kids said, "Mom, stay there." I said, "Okay." They said, "We know that you hit the gong for your last chemo, and we couldn't be there. And so what we've done is we bought you your very own gong, and we want to celebrate with you the accomplishment of getting through chemo." So they said, "Take the little thing off, and we want you to gong." And so I sat there. I said, "Okay, here we go." I went through 8 rounds of chemo, and I was so sick. I lost all my hair, but God helped me through it.
And now we get to celebrate with you.
Yes.
That is an
And you know what? It meant so much to me that my kids, even after the fact, it could be after something happens, to go back and say, "You know what? You did it. You did it. With God's help, you did it." And so, I mean, celebrating the wins is so important.
And for husband and wife, that's the most important. But if you have kids and they have a big win, celebrate, go crazy with your kids. If you're a kid and your parent does something great, whatever age they are, celebrate that as well. And so, just such an important thing. And Dr. Mike brought out those studies that even if someone who just is not that enthusiastic, he just says, "Oh yeah, that's good for you." That shows the negativity. It is translated as kind of negativity, and it has affects the happiness of a marriage. So celebrate the wins, everyone.
Right, so even
important.
Dr. Mike was saying, even the people whose they celebrate it quietly, they're not as happy.
Right.
Right.
So it's a matter of being intentional to bring those things up. When we toured with Les and Leslie Parrott, they had a thing they talked about withholds, they called it. There's negative withholds and positive withholds. And withholds aren't something you consciously withhold, but you just kind of, they're a passing thought and you don't speak it. And there are negative things that can be passing thoughts. Something bugs you and you don't speak it, or there can be really positive things. So I can have the positive passing thought of, wow, you look really nice today. But I think it in my head, but it doesn't make it out my mouth. But we can think that we actually, it's almost, we thought it, and so it's almost like we said it to us. It's done. It's a closed book. But she never actually heard it from me. So it's just being conscious to not just let those little wins or those little positive things just come pass through our mind and not saying, but to be intentional about verbalizing it. Because like on Sunday when you spoke at that church, you did really great. Like little things like that. Like don't let them just be a thought, and let them come out your mouth.
I think the fact that we all have the waterworks turning on here shows, it proves that it means a lot. Yeah.
Great segment, guys. Something to celebrate.
Yeah.
All right. Stay with us. There's more Better Us coming up.